We ask questions all day, every day. It feels like the most basic thing we do, right? But what if I told you that every single question you ask is actually a super complex, layered piece of, well, social engineering? That's what we're doing today. We're going to pull back the curtain on the simple question and show you the powerful machine that's really working underneath.
Okay, so take a look at this one. Are you busy tonight? Super simple, right? It just seems like a straightforward yes or no question about your schedule. But is that really all that's going on here?
Yeah, not even close. Just look at the huge gap between what the words literally mean and what could actually be happening. On the surface, sure, it's about a schedule. But underneath all that, it could be someone asking you out, asking for a big favor, or maybe they need to have a serious talk. The words themselves are just the tip of the iceberg.
So, to really get this, we have to look past the dictionary definition of the words. We need to dive into the unspoken rules of a conversation. There's actually a whole field for this. It's called pragmatics, and that is where all the hidden depth of a conversation really comes from. Okay, so think of it like this. Every single question is basically an iceberg. The words you actually hear, the "are you busy" part, that's just the tiny little tip you can see sticking out of the water. But the real meaning, the massive unseen part, is all hiding beneath the surface. So, let's go. Let's dive in and explore those hidden layers. All right, first up, we're hitting that first layer right below the surface, context. Context is basically the entire world that surrounds a question. It's the who, the what, the where, the when. It's everything that gives the words their real power.
Let me give you another example. Just picture this. A party just ended, and someone asks you, did everyone come to the party? The words themselves couldn't be simpler, right? Did everyone come?
Now, if you take away the context, that question is just absurd. I mean, you're obviously not asking if all 8 billion people on Earth decided to pop by your living room. The literal meaning is just ridiculously huge.
And this is where our brains do something pretty incredible. Context just instantly and automatically shrinks the scope of that question. Everyone suddenly stops meaning everyone on the planet and starts meaning everyone we invited. And your brain does this super complex calculation so fast, you don't even realize it's happening. That's context. It provides the frame. And context does a whole lot more too. It helps us figure out vague words like what does many even mean? It helps establish the shared world we're talking about. And this is a big one. It can add bias. Just think about the difference here. Did you go versus didn't you go? That one tiny word, not, adds a whole new layer of expectation, and that's all thanks to context.
Okay, so let's peel back another layer and go even deeper. Let's talk about the speaker's intention. See, a question is never just a passive request for info. It's an active, strategic move in what is basically a game of conversation. Every single question has a kind of secret mission.
In fact, researchers in this field call them exactly that, strategic moves. What this means is that whenever we ask something, we're actually trying to hit a specific goal. We're trying to steer the conversation in a very particular direction to get what we want.
So, get this. A single question can be doing a bunch of different jobs all at the same time. I mean, yeah, the obvious one is getting information, but it's also playing a strategy. It's revealing what the speaker actually believes. Remember how "didn't you go" shows that they totally expected you to be there? And a lot of the time, it's actually performing an action. Could you pass the salt? Isn't really a question about your physical ability, right? It's a polite way of saying, pass the salt. All right, time to go to the deepest layer of the iceberg. It turns out questions don't just exist inside a conversation, they actually create the entire structure of it. They're like the blueprints that decide where the whole dialogue is going to go. The key idea here is something linguists call the question under discussion, or just QUD for short. And it's actually pretty simple. When you ask a question, you're basically putting a big topic on the table for everyone. From that point on, everything that gets said is judged on how well it helps answer that main topic. So, in other words, your question completely sets the agenda.
Let's say, for example, a manager asks their team this big, high-level question. That right there becomes the main QUD. The entire point of the meeting, the whole goal of the conversation, is now to figure out an answer to that one question.
But you can't just jump straight to the solution for a big question like that, right? You've got to break it down. So maybe someone on the team asks a smaller sub-question, a sub-QUD, and you'll notice how it's totally relevant to that main goal.
answering this smaller question helps everyone get one step closer to solving the big one. And then maybe another person raises a totally different sub-question, and that creates a whole new branch in the conversation. And that's exactly how questions build a logical path forward. The main question is like the destination on a map, and all these sub-questions are the different turns you have to take to get there. They're literally the blueprint for a good, productive conversation.
So, when you put all of this back together, what does it all mean? Well, it means we kind of need a whole new way of listening to conversations. We need to pay attention not just to the words people are saying, but to the entire hidden structure that's working underneath.
I think the biggest takeaway here is that questions are not passive things at all. They are active, incredibly powerful tools. They shape the topic, they reveal what we're really thinking, and they're the architects of the entire back and forth between us and other people.
So from now on, when you hear a question, just remember that iceberg with its 3 layers. Don't just hear the literal words floating on the surface. Make sure you listen for the context that's shaping those words, and then try to dig a little for the speaker's true intent that's hiding down below, because that is where the real conversation is happening.
And that leaves us with one final thought to take with you. The very next time you're about to ask a question, just pause for a second. Ask yourself, what job am I really asking this question to do? What kind of conversation am I trying to build here? What is my question really for?